Right. Just starting out our live here, live streaming and hosting the webinar for today, Optimize to Educate. Just going to wait a couple of seconds just to get started on this. And you can hear my dog who has chosen this moment to start crying. Hazel, come here. Oh, come say hello to the people. Say hello to the people. Oh no, the lighting is not so good. Anyway, Hazel would like to get us started here with, do you see yourself? Oh my God. Okay, you have to stop crying. Thank you. All right, go sit on the sofa. Okay. All right. I'm gonna let our first person in here. Okay. All right. Welcome, Kate. Thank you for joining us. And I don't know, we might have some more participants. Hello. How are you?
Good. How are you doing? Can you hear me?
I can. Thank you for joining in. I'm going to start in a few minutes. I don't know if we're going to have more participants here today, but this is also live streaming in the group. So a lot of folks may be just in the group here. And I realize now I can't hear you because I don't have my things. You missed Hazel. Hazel made an appearance because she's crying and being annoying. Um, no, she's perfect. She's adorable. Say hello. Just trying to get in the chair. Okay, all right. Stop messing around. My goodness. All righty. So I'm going to share the screen so we can get started. Let me just make sure I've pulled up what I need to pull up, and then I'll be serious. Be more serious about it. Okay, here we go. Sharing my screen. And okay, so Kate, I think I need to have I don't know how to have just my video on here. Maybe if you turn your video off and it's only on presenter
Okay.
video, because right now I'm seeing you, although I am seeing only myself actually in the live stream. Anyway,
Is that better?
yes, that is better. On my end. It doesn't really matter. It looks like it's still showing up. It's just me. Okay. Anyway, now we now we'll go ahead and get started. Okay. So thank you so much for joining me on this webinar, Optimize to Educate. This is going to be for educators and administrators who are really passionate about getting the best outcomes for their students and really committing to trying to educate our students in the best of times and worst of times with fewer resources, as you'll see as we go on, and just try to do the best that they can for their students and schools. So if you're committed to making a difference in the lives of your students, then you're in the right place. Today, we are going to talk about kind of the shifting literacy landscape and how schools and maybe private practice professionals can adapt and meet this rising demand, even with lowered resources and funding. We're also going to explore how remote literacy instruction can actually be a viable solution to a valuable resource for schools to supplement their reading instruction. And that goes for private practitioners as well. All right, so before we really dive in, I just want to take the opportunity to introduce myself and tell you a little bit about my story. And oh, for 1 second. Um, well, that's behaving in a strange way, but we're going to go with it. Okay. Taking the opportunity to introduce myself, my name is Catherine Barboza, and I am a reading specialist, dyslexia therapist. I work with all of my students exclusively online. I'm a curriculum designer and the founder of the Teach to Read Blueprint. Um, I have, just let me stop this share for a second. I'm having a little bit of a technical difficulty. Let me just see if I can make this refresh itself and do what it's supposed to be doing. All right, stand by. We might have to start over. Um, and all right, try that again. I know you were seeing what you're supposed to be seeing, but I wasn't seeing what I'm supposed to be seeing. So let me see if I can make that work. One more time. Okay. All right, let me see here. I think that's going to be better. There may be some editing later for the shareable version of this. Okay, let me scooch that to the right spot and shift that over. Okay. All right, let's start that over for the people in the back. Um, actually, I'll just clip that part together. Okay. Anyway, let me introduce myself yet again. My name is Catherine Barbosa. I am a reading specialist and dyslexia therapist. I work with students exclusively online, and I am also a curriculum developer and the founder of the Teach to Read Blueprint. So I have been working with students in some capacity, basically for my whole adult life. Even when I was a teenager, I would help my mom out, who is a kindergarten teacher, in her classroom. So from my mom's kindergarten classroom to preschool teacher to working in the special education department of the public schools, and then on to a literacy specialist as well. I have just been working with students for really such a long time. And it's always been my passion. Years ago, when I was working in the special education department at the public school, my job was to shadow a student, a fourth grade student, and my job was essentially to make sure that he got all of his IEP services. So I would take him to the various specialists in the building. I would help him make sure he got his pull-out services. I would deliver a lot of his services. So this was a comprehensive job. But I started to notice something that I found concerning. And what I noticed was that between the traveling around the school and transitioning in and out of the classroom, having to acclimate to new environments multiple times a day, setup, takedown, distractions, all of these things meant that the actual time spent on instruction was minimal. The IEP requirements were not being met, not even close in terms of instructional time. And this was concerning enough to me that I did bring it to administrators. And unfortunately, nothing really came of that, even though I made a spreadsheet just detailing like where all the time loss was happening. So even though that did not really amount to a good outcome necessarily for that student, unfortunately, it did kind of kick off this interest of mine in optimizing in the educational field. And so that interest was only intensified by when teachers all over the world, particularly in the United States, all had to go home. We all had to leave our classrooms and begin teaching across a screen. This was a hugely challenging time, as any teacher who was working during that time would tell you. Um, it was challenging for all of us, and really there was a lot of pushback, especially for people who were working with younger students. How are we going to keep our students engaged? How are we going to translate the curriculum that we use in person to this digital environment? And will students be able to get anything out of this kind of instruction? So there was a lot of pushback, and frankly, it was warranted at the time because, as my colleagues and I discovered, there really weren't tools that made that job easier and more effective for students. We were looking for something that would kind of have everything laid out and ready to go, and something that had been tested and was meant for teaching young students and optimized for that sort of online learning environment. Well, it didn't exist. It certainly didn't exist for young children. So what my colleagues and I did is we just pulled resources from like 100 different places, TPT, Pinterest, wherever we could find different resources. We created a lot of our own resources. And frankly, a lot of the times we were just winging it, to be honest, but we did the best we could with what we had at the time. Uh, but that kind of kicked off my interest in this. And at the same time that this was happening, I was also studying instructional design. And I started to kind of investigate a little bit how digital media could work in this remote instruction field. And just diving deeper into that, um, helped me start to create something for myself to use. I started to compile, streamline, and structure my own lesson plans just for my own personal use. And the more I did that and the more streamlined and structured that got, the more I really landed solidly in the place of being a remote teaching convert. It really opened up a new world of possibilities. And I'm a big person, a big fan of optimization and efficiency. So it was like the perfect thing for me. Absolutely. But let's actually step back a little bit right now and just kind of let the camera pan back. And we're going to take sort of a broader look at just what it has been the landscape of literacy instruction over the last 40 years. It really has been a dynamic process over the last 40 years, sometimes stagnating in places that we wish it hadn't stagnated, but it's shifted through several competing and sometimes conflicting approaches. So this has sometimes been referred to as the reading wars. And the reason for this is because these different philosophies really do not play well together. And when they try to play well together, the result isn't very good. So initially, there was a focus on phonics instruction, which was going to be like explicit, direct instruction of phonetic concepts. And then there was some sort of a pushback against that, which resulted in this philosophy called whole language, which was reading environment, exposure to print type of approach. It felt good for teachers and students, but it wasn't effective. And so then came about balanced literacy, which was an attempt to bring both of those two things together. And that remained popular for decades. However, what we discovered was that balanced literacy was not actually as effective as we had hoped it would be. And so recently, there has now been a shift to back toward phonics instruction, but more importantly, back toward an alignment with the research into what we now know about how students learn to read. There's a movement now that is shifting our curriculum toward being aligned with this body of research that has shown scientifically how students learn to read, and it is through explicit systemic sequenced instruction and involves all strands of the reading rope. This body of research is sometimes referred to as the science of reading. It's kind of become a catchphrase, often even, you'll see SOR aligned, science of reading aligned. It's a sort of a catchphrase, but it really just refers to this body of research. Uh, all this to say is that the landscape was shifting in the right direction. So we had schools, districts, educators starting to move in the right direction, and slowly like turn the Titanic around of the balanced literacy debacle that had resulted in really low literacy scores across the United States. And schools are starting to replace outdated curricula. They're investing in science of reading aligned professional development. So they're really moving away from this sort of philosophy-driven approach to a more evidence-based approach to teach reading. However, sadly to say, we have hit a roadblock. Progress is being cut short. So unfortunately, districts are being forced to cancel professional development, forced to put a halt to any changes in curricula. And that is because a lot of the funding that has been earmarked for these things is frozen. $6.8 billion in federal education grants are on hold right now. They are on freeze. And that is, that's a shifting thing. It can change from moment to moment, but certainly funding is in jeopardy. And that is, a problem because it results in this There's no PD available, and the curricula isn't being updated. And also, there are layoffs and there are fewer specialists being hired in schools. So, with the professional development budgets being slashed, teacher trainings are canceled or they're delayed. Our interventionists who play a crucial role, there are fewer roles for them now available in the school system. This means that the burden is being placed on the classroom teacher and the support staff, such as the paraprofessionals or the teacher's aides that are in the classroom. And we're seeing that outside support specialists like dyslexia therapists and private tutors and even volunteer organizations, they're seeing an increased demand. More families are coming to them seeking support to fill in the gaps that are created by what the schools cannot provide at this time. So, how do we keep up with this demand? Um, for our reading specialists, uh, you are going to see that your caseload is increasing. That means less time for preparation. Your student load is higher. You may be asked to provide some kind of teacher training so that the schools can keep up with the IEP plans and not have to spend the time and money on expensive teacher trainings. For our support staff, you're going to be managing larger groups with reduced training. So you have to also get kind of creative about time efficiency. Our private tutors, you're experiencing higher demand, and you're going to need to structure your services so that you can use your time most efficiently and effectively in order to make the biggest impact you possibly can. If it's your full-time job, you can't be cutting your hourly rate in half by spending hours on prep and planning. For school administrators, you may need to consider some outside the box solutions in order to meet the students' needs while working in the confines of this budgetary situation. And that brings me to our next point, which is considering remote instruction. Remote instruction, why consider this as a viable solution to these challenges? How can we use it to supplement the instruction students are already receiving in schools? So remote instruction is effective, efficient, and it is affordable. Efficiency is not a luxury at this point. It really never was because teaching time is precious. But now more than ever, it is something that we absolutely have to consider in all of our practices. Teaching online is a solution for tutors who want to save time and be efficient and effective. And it's an affordable way for schools to supplement student education. So why does live online remote instruction work? Um, everyone, sometimes people hear online learning or remote teaching and they're immediately turned off because I think everyone has a little bit of PTSD from the pandemic experience because at that time, that type of instruction was not effective. But there were reasons for that. There were many reasons. One of which was that we did not have the design in place for effective online teaching, especially for younger students. And the design, evidence-based design, is very impactful and it is really critical for the success. You have your structure, interaction, and flow that has to be designed into your remote instruction platform, and this will include scaffolded challenges, immediate feedback, social collaborative elements, and gamification. All of these things are by design meant for high engagement and um, increased learning. So if you are ensuring your live digital remote lessons follow these principles, you are going to see good results. Live interaction does boost the engagement and the retention of knowledge. So when the students have this live online interaction, they get the immediate feedback that significantly improves learner performance and completion of assignments. And so the also active and engaged learning means that you are going to see better outcomes for your students. And broader research shows that active learning with technology, including these online tools, boosts the motivation of students, the engagement, and their learning gains compared to more passive methods. Gamification, another really important component of online instruction, that enhances motivation and retention. Gamified elements like points and badges and levels, those have been proven to significantly increase student engagement, their motivation, and their knowledge retention. So that's why remote instruction works. When and why, though, does remote teaching just make sense? So there are so many use cases for remote instruction, and I'm just going to go through a few of these really briefly. So to start with, hard to staff areas and rural environments. These might be areas where they don't have access to as many specialists or any specialists at all. And so allowing for remote instruction and kind of incorporating that into a school system in a more remote area will allow for access to reading specialists that they might not otherwise have had access to. Extended year services, extended school year, summer programs, after school programs. With this, you are able to offer reading intervention during school breaks and without requiring the building to stay open or adding any transportation. That means schools can meet IEP deliverables and close those reading gaps affordably and just by assigning remote teachers or contracting with tutors. It can be used for specialized targeted interventions for smaller subgroups like tier two and tier three reading groups. This can be delivered virtually, lessening the burden of the during class time pull-out interventions. Flexible tutoring, it allows for convenient use for families and teachers and means that more families will take advantage of getting the extra support and students will have potentially more frequent, repetitive tutoring experiences because it is so convenient. Finally, it allows for continuity of learning when a student may be traveling, experience illness, there may be some kind of an emergency. This allows services to stay uninterrupted when students are not able to be in the classroom. Additionally, schools can pivot quickly if there are some type of closure means that remote instruction becomes necessary. So all that being said, I do want to kind of circle back to the story I was telling you earlier about my early experiences with kind of diving into remote teaching and becoming that convert, as I said, because I created that resource, as I mentioned, for myself, and I streamlined it and I structured it and I made it so it was sequenced and easy to use. And I noticed two things. One, I suddenly no longer had to spend hours prepping and planning. Frankly, my prep time and my note-taking time reduced to just a tiny fraction of what it had been before. And that was great for me. But more importantly, I actually was seeing that my students were learning faster. They were making progress and getting through the curriculum at a faster pace, and they had better learning retention because we had all but eliminated downtimes and distractions. And at first, I was like, that can't be right. This must be wrong. How can online teaching actually have a better outcome than an in-person session? But then I thought back to my little friend that I shadowed in the special education department and all of those transitions and all of those environmental distractions and all of those kind of physical environmental factors that meant that we did not get as much instruction time. And it started to make sense. Our students know how to engage with a screen, for better or worse. 9 times out of 10, that is a bad thing. Okay, but we can harness that. We can harness that effect for good in teaching, right? So screens are engaging because they allow the distractions to kind of slip away, to melt away. And we are going to use that for our purposes to make that a good thing. Because interaction with a live person on screen while doing high engagement activities and high interest activities, that's so engaging that the distractibility factor is reduced very significantly. And that means that the students are more focused, they're more engaged. That means that they are going to take advantage of more recall response opportunities, meaning they're going to have more opportunities to practice and demonstrate their skill, which means that they are going to have higher retention, which means that they are going to have faster paced learning and ultimately a better outcome. So we can harness screen time for good. In any case, I had created something that worked both for me and for my students, and I wanted to share it with others. That's how the Teach to Read Blueprint was born. It is what is the Teach to Read Blueprint? Okay, sorry, I should probably tell you. The Teach to Read Blueprint is a digital guided structured literacy curriculum. It is designed primarily for online instruction because it has been optimized for learning in the online environment, but it can be used in the classroom on an interactive whiteboard and with the printable elements. So it does offer some flexibility. It's a comprehensive platform that is aligned with structured literacy and that ensures its effectiveness. So this blueprint is a guided step-by-step digital lesson plan, and every component of every lesson is sequenced and structured and already done for you and ready to go in a way that makes teaching very easy. And because it is so streamlined and you can move through it in a way where you don't have downtime and distractions, students on average get to experience about 30% more recall response opportunities than they would in a typical in-person lesson. And as I said before, the more opportunities we have for that, the better the knowledge retention is and the faster the learning pace is. Let me get even more specific to go through the Teach to Read blueprint for you. The Teach to Read blueprint offers um, oh, don't blink that out. Oops. Okay. Start that again. Okay. The Teach to Read Blueprint offers educators a dashboard where they can access a whole array of teaching tools. First and foremost are the unit lesson plans. Those plans are divided up into three different sections, and right now they number 1 through 24. The unit lesson plans cover phonemic awareness, phonetic concepts from closed syllables to vowel team syllables and multisyllabic words. The units are aligned with the typical structured literacy scope and sequence, similar to UFly or other structured literacy curricula. For a typical lesson, a teacher would open her dashboard and select whichever unit and unit segment she and her student are on. This would open up the unit lesson plan, and the lesson would be laid out step by step, one after the other, slideshow style. Every lesson plan includes components for phonemic awareness, sight word recognition, whole word reading, reading connected text, spelling, and orthographic mapping activities. The activities change to keep the interest high, but they do follow a pattern, so there's some predictability for your students. If a teacher is new to the program and they're working through a unit perhaps for the first time, they'll see that the green cards are for the teachers. The instructions are there, and there are also links to instructional videos. On the student slides, the same instructions are going to be available in the speaker notes section so that the teacher, if need be, can always take a peek at the instructions again if she needs to check in to see if she can understand something. Throughout every unit, there will be assessment checkpoints. Those are going to pop up for the teacher at different intervals during the units. And that will prompt the teacher to open her downloadable progress tracker so she can add that data and keep track of her student progress, um, as well as then adjust instruction if necessary. This is very similar to the downloadable pre and post assessment trackers, and those are shareable with parents. Each unit contains multiple decodable stories, high interest digital games that reinforce the concept and allow for skill practice, Everything is accessible within the unit, but if you want to revisit a concept and want quick access, you can just go back to the dashboard. And at the dashboard, you can find all the things you might need, like the video guides, which is a series of instructional videos that are linked throughout the units, but they're also all there in one place for you if you need them. And then our game library full of digital games that are able to be accessed and even shared with parents. The downloadable section as well, and that contains decodable stories, printable games, and workbook pages. And also downloadable dynamic assessment tools. The libraries within the Teach to Read Blueprint are an ever expanding selection. We add new material every month so that the teachers won't run out of things to do, and they won't run out of things to share with families. There are communication email templates and progress report templates. Those are included as well. So if you are a teacher, a volunteer, a tutor just starting her tutoring business, you're going to be able to easily communicate with parents and other professionals. Everything that you download in the Teach to Read Blueprint is yours to keep forever, even if you cancel your subscription. For specialists and support staff who are working in this tool allows for interaction on the interactive whiteboard, and also you can use the printable materials in the classroom. People who work one-on-one or in small groups with students outside of the school environment, this is the perfect opportunity to bring your work online so that you can have the highly efficient and effective lessons and completely eliminate your prep time. If you're a school administrator, you could set an army of para-educators on the trail for virtual extended school year services, after school programs, for a fraction of the cost of purchasing new curricula and paying for expensive professional development. At first, I made this tool for myself, but then I wanted to share it. And now it's this has been made for you. I made this for reading specialists who want um, efficient and effective lesson plans, the private tutor or specialist who wants to teach online. You guys are the experts. You can use this however you want. It can be a complete program for you. It can be a supplement to what you already have. It can be a supplement to whatever curricula your school is using that may not align as well with the science of reading. You get to make those choices. You can be flexible. But this Teach to Read Blueprint was also designed for people who have never taught online, who are not tech savvy, who maybe are even new to teaching at all. So this is for people who could be potentially just starting out. And the reason it's for you is because it's completely plug and play, done for you. It takes all the guesswork out. If you're a school administrator seeking a cost-effective solution that can be immediately implemented to offer additional support services or have as a backup in case remote teaching becomes necessary, this is for you as well. Okay, now we're actually going to take a look at a use case. Speaking of school administrators, we're going to take a look at a use case in which a school is considering offering extended school year services for literacy instruction. This is a fairly typical scenario, actually. Extended school year services are usually an option that schools will consider in order to help retain learning for their students over the summer, meet IEP deliverables, etc. So what we're going to look at is the traditional in-person ESY reading program. This would be taking place, of course, on the school campus. And I'm making our kind of an average scenario where there are 50 students who need to take advantage of the ESY. We're going to have 10 teaching staff, 10 teachers, some additional staff, which include paraeducators, and maybe one literacy specialist on board. And the schedule for this, so no parent is going to want to drop their kid off for 45 minutes and then pick them back up. It's just not convenient and it's not the way these camps are typically run. So it will be 5 days a week for 8 weeks, and we're going to allot 3 hours a day. So it kind of turns it into more of like a camp experience, which is typical for this type of program. So that means that the students are going to receive about 40 instructional hours and then 80 non-instructional hours. So that's the setup. And that's how that would typically look. So now we're going to look at the cost analysis of what that type of scenario would typically cost. So for staffing, considering hiring teachers, paraeducators, and maybe one literacy specialist for the number of hours required to run that program would be about $66,000. There would be some training necessary to use whatever curriculum is being implemented for the summer. So even assuming that we only provide that training for the 10 teachers and we only have it as a 1 day PD workshop, that's still $2,400. Transportation has to be considered. You have to get the kids from school to school and from school. So twice a day, 5 days a week for 8 weeks, that does amount to about $16,000 in transportation fees. Curriculum and materials, considering the average cost for a per teacher licensing of the typical curriculum and the materials that would be required, that would end up being about $4,500. We have to keep the building open. So if we're keeping the building open, we have to pay the water and the electricity and the HVAC, the building maintenance and the janitorial staff, and altogether, that's going to cost about $10,000. Our administrative costs are for setup and takedown, just getting the program up and running. That will cost about $3,000. And then if you're a school that does need to provide snacks or meals for your students, if you are hosting them on campus, that might be another $6,000. So all in all, we're looking at about $108,000 to run a summer ESY program. And that may seem like a lot of money to folks that are on the watching this that are not in school administration, but this is a typical cost for this type of program. So now we're going to look at a different scenario and see how that changes. Now we're going to look at a remote extended school year reading program and do a cost analysis of that. So we're going to take the same number of students. These are the same students who are going to show up at school, 50 kids, and we're going to give them this opportunity in a different way. We're going to have our 10 teaching staff again, and maybe one additional staff member, perhaps a literacy specialist or a coordinator of some type. The teaching staff does not have to be classroom teachers or specialists. It can be your paraeducators, your teacher's aides, because this program is so easy to use. It does not require any training, and it does not require that the person delivering the instruction be a teacher. So the schedule is going to be completely different. In this scenario, there will be remote one-on-one 1 hour sessions 5 times a week per student. So each student is meeting with a tutor online for 1 hour a day, 5 days a week on their own, just one-on-one. That means that they are receiving the same 40 instructional hours, but they are not getting any of the non-instructional hours. And so now let's take a look at what the cost analysis would be for that. For our staffing, the staffing is going to be reduced. So we actually have fewer staff members to pay. And as I said, you may be able to staff this program with paraeducators, teachers' aides, as well as teachers. So that might reduce the staffing cost as well. You can see the training for the staff is at zero. There is no training required to use this curriculum. Transportation cost, again, of course, $0. Everyone is in their living room. Curriculum and materials. This is a little bit less because the Teach to Read blueprint is less expensive than traditional curriculum. I'm sorry, that's my dog. Stop crying, please. Goodness. All right. Anyway, the facilities and utilities, $0. We're not going anywhere. We're not going into the schools. We don't have to keep anything open. Administrative costs remain the same. We still have the same kind of setup and organization. And then we have snacks and meals, $0. Right. So this brings us to about 46,000. Now, I'll throw out there, I'll consider this. You may need to provide iPads for your students. That's a consideration. We have to have the technology. If you do have to do that, of course, those iPads can then be used in other applications at school. So you get a lot of value out of it. But we could add another $3,000 to $4,000 on top so that we can just kind of bring that up and be more conservative. That brings us to about $50,000, which is less than half the cost of the traditional ESY program. But this is not just about cost savings. This is a better way to provide instruction. There are going to be benefits for the students that have nothing to do with the budget. They're going to get one-on-one instruction versus the small group or large group instruction. This has been proven beyond a shadow of a doubt that one-on-one teaching instruction is more effective than small group. It simply is because the ratio is 1 to 1. This is certainly indisputable. It's convenient for families. Families are going to be traveling, they might have camps, they might have siblings that have other needs. This is a way for them to participate in a way that's convenient for them. And because it's convenient for them, this is the most important piece. You're going to have a higher participation rate. This is really critical. Of those 50 kids who you wanted to have come to the school and participate in this ESY program, how many of those folks are traveling? How many have already signed up for other camps? How many have siblings who have camp schedules that line up in such a way that they can't do pickup and drop off? You are not going to get the participation rate that will be anywhere near as high as if you are doing this remotely because it is done at the convenience of families. They can schedule directly with the tutors or teachers to make it such that their student gets all of the instruction that is being allotted to them. And so that when the school year begins again, we have a stronger student body and we have kids coming in a much stronger position than had they not been able to get this instruction over the summer. Okay. I have a second use case for you. And you know what? Turn my camera back on and there we are. Okay. I'm going to go through a second use case for you, completely different. Now we're looking at a private reading specialist, private tutor. Maybe you're starting your own tutoring practice, whatever it is, but maybe you're already established. In this use case, we are looking at we're imagining a tutor who's already established in their practice. It also assumes that this is a reading specialist tutor who has the type of credentials that would allow them to, you know, charge a rate that is more than what a paraeducator would charge or what like an hourly rate for a paraeducator. I have set it at I've kind of invented this scenario, and I will say that rates for reading specialists who work with students one-on-one varies really widely from geographic region to geographic region. It can range anywhere from 25 to 150 or more. So really big range, but I'm going to go really conservative and just say that this person's session rate is $35 per session. We call that the hourly rate, even though a session length might not quite be an hour, might be 50 minutes. We're going to say this person has 15 students and they have 30 sessions per week because each of their students, they see them twice a week. Great. They have a 30-hour work week. This is not even full time, just barely full time, and they're earning $1,050 a week. That sounds nice. That sounds amazing. But there's a bit of a problem because they have to spend 40, they have to bookend every session with about 40 minutes on prep and notes. And that happens 30 times a week. So now their work week, it isn't 30 hours a week, it's 50 hours a week. And if it's 50 hours a week and they're still earning the same salary, their hourly rate is a lot lower, right? And so don't slash your rate losing time to prep and planning and follow up and notes, right? If the Teach to Read blueprint, and you are following that, you do not have to slash that time. You do not have to add that time in to do that planning and prep and follow up. And that means that you get to preserve your hourly rate that you've worked so hard for. You've got your teaching degrees, maybe you've got your master's, you've gotten your specialist to bookend all of your sessions with this planning and prep. Okay. So next, I think that's really it. I think on it just about. Yeah, we have. All right. Parting thoughts. The demand for literacy support is growing. The funding is disappearing. Teaching time is precious. It is critical that we use it efficiently so that we can be effective for our students. They don't have the time to waste. We need to be cognizant of that and preserve that for them. Our time is precious for ourselves as well. We need to preserve our sanity and our own time by not wasting hours on prep and planning. I built this for educators and administrators like you. I want it to be valuable for you. I have put as many valuable things as I can possibly think of into this blueprint, and I'm adding more every single month. And I want you to have those things. I want you to get into this system and use the tools as much as you want. And then I want you to keep the things that I'm putting in there. I want you to get the value because I want you to pass it on to your students. And I really, really appreciate that you have come and watched this and just gotten to know me and the Teach to Read Blueprint a little bit better. And just a huge, huge thank you for coming and participating. So, I would like to just as a wrap up, I will invite you to come try the Teach to Read Blueprint, go check it out. You can scan the QR code that you're seeing on your screen now, or you can just simply go to teachtoreadblueprint.com and check it out for yourself. And I'm really excited to see how the blueprint will work for you, benefit your work, and how it can fit into your teaching environment. Again, thank you so much for coming, and I really appreciate it. Happy teaching. All right. Kate, you're still there? I think I'm still live streaming. Let's
I
see.
am. I'm still here.
I'm definitely still live streaming, but I have forgotten how to stop it.
Hi. I'm still here. That
I'm
was
still
amazing.
live streaming. Thank you. I'm pretty sure I'm still live streaming, so let me see if I can stop that for a
Okay.
second. How do I do it? Okay. I'm not sharing my screen. Okay, yes, I'm ending the live video. And